Good morning, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe. Of course, it's Biashara Tuesday, and this morning we're talking about something that we all aspire to, that is business, just starting a business and ensuring its success. And of course, joining me in studio for this particular conversation is Raphael Matu. Raphael is an economist, a financial consultant, and an entrepreneur. Karibu sana to studio, Raphael.
Okay, thank you for having me.
All right, I just want us to start on a very, very basic level.
Okay.
When is it a good time for someone to start a business?
I think maybe first of all we need to ask ourselves, what is a business in the first place? Because the moment we understand what the business is all about, then we can tell when it is the right time to start a business. And I think there are several things we need to understand. Okay. In a layman's language, you know, we don't want to make it very technical. It is simply selling a good or a service for profit. You know, you're not offering it for free. So the first thing to ask yourself is there a need? Because you see, you cannot sell and make a profit if there's no need. So I think the most important thing, you look at what are the gaps. So what are the needs in the market? Is the demand there? So if there's something that you feel that there's a demand for it, maybe there's a need for it, then that is the time now you think you want to provide that good or service. But the other thing that comes in is, are you the solution to that need? And what determines whether you are the solution to the need? Do you feel like, for example, you have a skill? You know, at times it comes from a skill. You have been, like, for example, a doctor, you feel you have enough experience, you have worked in different hospitals. Do you feel like you have enough experience now to use that experience, to use that skill, maybe probably to make money, and you sell that service? Others may be passion. You know, is it something that you are passionate about? Do you feel like you're so passionate in terms of traveling that you need to start a traveling company? Do you think like you're so passionate about nutrition and health living, you know, that you want to become a nutritionist and maybe that is the line you want to offer services and make money? Do you feel like you're very good in terms of matters like entertainment, fitness, you need to start a gym, you know? So you look at the need. I think, like I've said, very important is the need there, and do you have what it takes maybe to give that need?
Passion.
Do you have the solution? Yes. Do you have the experience? Do you have the passion, or do you have the skills?
Now, in a market where, for instance, we're talking about passion and skills, and we see, let's say, beauty. You see, we have a lot of makeup artists right now. Let's say gym. We have a lot of gyms in the country right now. Let's talk about production of rice. Nataka supply rice. There are a lot. Now, how does one succeed in an environment where there are already people who are thriving in it, but you have this passion, you want to do makeup for people, you want to start a skincare brand, but there are already other established brands. So how do you survive in such an environment?
You see, like we have said, first of all, you look, is there a need? And if maybe you are saying there are many people.
Now looking at passion, you see, there's need. Maybe there's no need, but you have passion for this thing and you have the skills for it.
So I think we are always told that you will never discover the wheel in business. The wheel has already been discovered, right? But yes, as you have said, you know, there are people, a lot of people in fashion, there are a lot of people in beauty, there are a lot of people supplying, like maybe say a certain good. You have given the example of rice, you know. But how do you do it in a unique way, you know? In business, maybe, how do you have like a unique preposition, right? Do you just sit in a beauty parlor and you wait for customers to come? Or do you have a system or a network where you even go to where they work, you go to their homes, you see? Something unique, something that is different from others, because I think when you start business, and maybe that is going to be part of the conversation moving forward, how do you sustain? And maybe part of sustenance is how do you deal with this competition, right? How do you become unique? How do you provide a service or a good that is quite unique, maybe from what your other competitors are offering? And maybe what we may call as differentiation, maybe in economic terms. How different, how unique are you in the minds of your consumers or your customers?
And you know, right now the country's economic environment is quite volatile. We're looking at increased taxation, the inflation rate is going quite high, and the credit is also increasing. So given this relation, right, is this really the right time for someone to start a business?
Like I said, when I said you look at the need, and then you look at whether you're the one who is able to provide that need. The other thing that I think I may add to that list is, what do you need to start the business? Because I think once you identify what you need, then that question that you have just asked, I think we will be able to get an answer for it. It goes without saying, like when you get to business, you need, whether you're providing a good or service, you definitely need resources that will enable you to provide the good. If maybe, for example, you're a farmer and you need to rear animals, you know, one maybe, for example, you want to keep cows, you may need to think about maybe where do you get the animals? Do you have the farm where to rear these animals? Where will you be getting your feeds, right? Now, where do you get labor? You know, it can be small scale, can be a large scale farm where you even need vets, you need, you know, experts even to take care of those animals and so forth. So as you gather all that information, it goes without saying, in simple terms, then we are talking about availability of capital. What we call as capital. Of course, in economic sense, it means something else. But in finance, do you have that money to look into, to raise or to get to address those needs for the business? So if you look at the economic framework, then you'll be asking yourself, where is this money coming from, and where am I putting that money? Because you have said, when the economy is not doing very well, of course, some areas we have serious issues in terms of very high levels of taxation, right? Is that the area that you really want to put your money into? Of course not. We have talked about borrowing and maybe the cost of borrowing being very high. So as you think of starting the business, will you be looking at sources of capital where maybe the cost for this business is too high? So I think you need to put all these factors into consideration. You have to think about the cost of capital, where is this capital coming from? And you also have to think, as you get into that industry, what are the main challenges that are within that industry? Are they things that you can be able to cope? Because overall, can you be able to make money? Because if you cannot be able to make money, then automatically business is not really viable. That is why, as we are saying, when the economy is not doing very well, it becomes quite a bit challenging. May not be the right time to start a business. However, every economic challenges that come in, they may also come with other opportunities as well. So you have to look at the challenging and difficult times. Which other opportunities come with those kind of challenges? Yeah.
Now, you've talked about borrowing, and this brings me to this question. Would you advise maybe a startup business to borrow money when they want to start this business, or just find another alternative to get capital for their business? Because we've had this conversation before, and others say that you should not take loan to start a business. You should just find a different alternative. So from where you sit, what would you recommend?
So I think the argument about whether to borrow or not to borrow, it depends on the nature of the business and the size of the business, right? For small businesses, maybe through basic savings or through family support or through maybe
digital
sponsorship,
lending.
yes, or even maybe through plans like maybe the youth fund women. Those ones you can get some kind of funding. But I don't think if you really want to start a big processing farm, for example, where you need maybe several millions of money, I don't think it will be very possible for someone to save. You need maybe 100 million, 200 million to start maybe a processing factory. You want maybe, for example, to process macadamia for export. We are trying to imagine that is a kind of a business that really calls for quite some very heavy investments, machinery in terms of equipments, in terms of the factory. And I don't think that it would be possible for you to invest in such a business without borrowing or seeking for financing. So when we say we borrow, it all depends on the nature of business that we are talking about. For small businesses, because even their chances of survival are usually limited, and most of them, of course, they struggle. We always told of most of 80% of businesses that start, they don't see their third birthday or whatever. But for big business, I still believe that it's not possible to run such business without borrowing. Yeah,
it's hard for them to see their
most of them, they don't. But I think it may not necessarily be because of the poor market dynamics, but again, it could also be because of people's ability to understand the business. And like I said, why did I go to that business? Is this something that I'm passionate about? Is this something that I'm skilled about? Is it something that I have experience in maybe doing? or is this something I just saw my friend doing, and because my friend has done it and is successful, I decided also to copy maybe what my other friends are doing. So it depends on so many other dynamics that come along the way.
So still on that point, why do you think, what would you say that is the reason as to why some businesses succeed in Kenya and others fail? I know you've mentioned something about them just going there blindly without doing due diligence, maybe peer pressure. But what exactly would you say is the reason as to why business doesn't get to see their third birthday?
Some factors, like I've said, some factors are avoidable and maybe others are unavoidable. Because, like, for example, when you talk about poor economic conditions, when you talk about high levels of taxation, when I talk about people lacking the purchasing power, those are things, when you talk about like maybe drastic changes in technology, those are things that are unavoidable, right? Others are things that we can avoid, like, for example, maybe lack of passion in what you do, maybe failing to concentrate in doing business, because, of course, doing business is not easy. Neither, of course, remaining in employment is neither easy as well. And as we are always told, you have to decide which is your
niche.
Yeah, which is your difficult, being in business is difficult. Being in employment also is difficult, right? But you have to choose your difficult, right? Other people also maybe lack resilience, because you think you get to business and in the next 1 or 2 days, in the next 1 or 2 weeks, you should already be making money. So remember, some businesses, again, depending on the size and the nature of the business, they'll take time to pick, right? You'll start like a small restaurant somewhere and you pick tea and mandazi, and maybe for that day, no single sale takes off. So if you don't have a strong heart, you may not open the following day, right? So the resilience also is very, very important. The focus, I think, in terms of running the business, adaptability also, and agility. Things will change every time, because, for example, assuming you're operating in a mall, maybe in Nairobi, for example, in town, and maybe you have like a small room, you're preparing chai, snacks, and whatever. Maybe you stay the whole day, you realize only 2 or 3 customers came in. Maybe you have to think, maybe I need now to move around the stalls, encouraging people to take tea and mandazi, and maybe asking for order, Maybe through that, ukinikuta, maybe where I'm selling clothes, I do not want to leave and come to your place 5-10 stalls away. But if you bring the tea and the snacks, I'll comfortably take, and maybe later in the evening, you have to come collecting money. I think what I'm saying is that failure to be creative, because, as we have said, the business environment is so dynamic. And maybe when you start, things may become easy. Competition comes in, changes in the environment in which you operate. So failure to adjust and to be agile can also be a factor that may seriously to fail in business. So there are those factors we can avoid by being passionate about what we do, being able to persevere, being more innovative in the way we deliver our businesses, and so forth. And others are unavoidable. Maybe when we have things like COVID, some economic challenges, economic difficulties, and many others that may come, and at times we find it difficult to remain in business.
Now, in a dynamic environment, of course, as you said, let's talk about another business. Of course, you're in a very tight competition. Would you recommend for this particular business to reduce the amount of sales? Let's talk about wakiuza something at 50 bob. Now they sell it at 20 bob. Is that a solution really for this business to also just pick up and rise past this other one that is now coming into competition?
So fighting, one of the biggest challenges, especially when there is competition, is a fight that involves prices. And this, I may say, not just even for a small business, but even in a bigger market dynamics where we could even be dealing with large firms. Fighting in relation to the prices can bring all of you down. You may all come crumbling, right? Because, like you have said, if something is selling for 50 bob, and then we try to, because I wanted to move, and then I want to go down to 20 shillings, right? Have I been able to recover the cost of production as a business, right? Because remember, this item is not me. Like we said, either I'm creating it, others are even buying so that I can resell to the customer at a profit. So unless my margin was very big, such that I can drop from 50 to 20, right? And what about if my colleagues also do the same? All of us will be done, right? So I think reducing the prices may not necessarily be the solution. And like I said earlier, it is becoming relatively more innovative, right? So how do you get to give more value to your customer? You may be fighting, you may be in the same price level, but when I come to your shop, when I come to your beauty parlor, when I come to your restaurant, right? Or even for a big company, maybe when I'm buying your products in bulk, do you maybe deliver what kind of discounts, right? Efficiency in terms of being able to deliver, on time communication, customer care, customer communication, all those things, I think they really determine on whether we'll succeed or not. Otherwise, when we start thinking about prices and you go down, right, you could be making a big mistake. First of all, you may have a few more customers, but first of all, like I said, can you meet your cost? Is it realistic? Is it workable? It may not work. But what about happens if your colleagues, again, also all of you decide to go down? So eventually you may force all of you to be out of the market. So I think from a business perspective, I think from my experience, let's focus on giving better value proposition to our clients. Let's do things in a unique way that even if all of us we're charging the same price, why will my customers come to me and not to you? Because they feel there is more value add, even in terms of the way the product is delivered, the way the service is delivered to them. They can be able to see value in that. So like I said, uniqueness, right? What is so different in terms of what you're offering, right? As compared to what others are doing. And that is why you also realize business also, like I said earlier, it calls for a lot of innovativeness, right? How innovative are you in terms of the product and the services that you're delivering to the clients? Yeah.
And you see, there's also this concern where we have other businesses who are, they're selling things in bulk or selling the same products as other businesses, but one is selling at a very, very higher price and the other is selling at a very, very low price. So you see, Kenyans, of course, they will go for this lower price. So what is the missing link between this person selling these products at a very high price and this one is selling them at a very low price? So what exactly are they missing here? That they can't be just a standard price for these products that they're selling. Say they're same quality, same everything, but prices are different.
The differences in the prices, again, like I've said, it can always, I said, first of all, you need to be quite very unique and maybe to be a bit different. Maybe what in business we call as competitive advantage. So what gives you competitive advantage, maybe in relation to me, and maybe we are offering the same product. And one of the things that can give me you a competitive advantage compared to me is maybe being able to operate at a relatively lower cost. So especially now that you have talked about large manufacturing, large farms and so forth. So what makes me, or it makes you sell at a relatively lower cost, maybe in terms of mechanization, in terms of your processes, you have streamlined your processes in terms of production, right? All those things that go to the dynamics of the business that can be able to help you to produce at a lower cost. If you can be able to produce at a lower cost, automatically it also means you can also be able to sell in the market at a relatively lower cost. So I think, therefore, what businesses need is to look at efficiency. How do you work on efficiency in terms of your business processes, right? In terms of your personnel, in terms of the skills, right, that people have, so that we can even be able to reduce wastages in the processes, right? In terms of maintenance of your machines to avoid breakages, right? In terms of adopting high technologies, which basically also imply that you're able to produce more within a relatively shorter period of time and so forth. If you're able to adopt that in businesses, then of course you can produce at a lower cost, and that means you can offer products at a relatively more competitive price. However, on the other side, why some people may still produce and sell at a high price and still get to the market. So this goes to the issue of the quality, right? Your initial question was where the quality is the same, but someone is able to sell at a lower price. Like I have said, is being able to manage your costs in such a way that you can operate efficiently at a lower cost, and therefore you can offer a competitive price. But it is also normal in business to find that we in the same industry, my products are selling at a relatively lower cost, yours at a high price, simply because your quality is better. In the markets, at times, customers are more focused in terms of the quality rather than in terms of the price. So people Some customers know what they want, right? And of course, we're talking about certain class of customers. And that is why you find that even certain businesses, right, they brand themselves as high quality, right?
Yeah.
You may find someone wants to go and take coffee at Java, maybe a cup at 200, 300, right? May not be so much different from the other, but we have tried to create that notion that we are of a high quality, we are of a high class. And therefore, most customers will look at the price and relate it to quality of the product.
Yes,
yeah.
Branding and everything.
Yes.
That's how you present your business and whatever you're selling.
And I remember from an economic perspective, it may not be real. It may be just what is in the minds of the customer, where the customers think that your products are of better quality. And that is what we call as product differentiation. It may not be real. It is, at times we call it as fancy, right? But do you create that in the minds of the customer that your products are of higher quality, and consequently they have no problem paying a high price for quality, which may be real or may be fancy.
Now, for a startup now, let's talk about these SMEs. Would you say digitization is a solution to help these businesses scale? Because we've been having this conversation about SMEs should be going digital or just incorporating digital solutions into their biasharas to ensure that they spike. So would you say that is a solution for these small businesses?
I think yes, because where we are and maybe where we're moving in terms of technology, any business that will definitely not move in that direction will become obsolete. Traditionally, maybe if I give an example, you realize that like let's assume like in town, in the city center, you would find big businesses, big shops those time, and at some time dynamics came in where maybe most of the buildings were to be partitioned. We had small stalls, right? And maybe even those people who will get stalls in the front part of the street will need to pay a lot of money at times. What people are calling as goodwill, 3 million goodwill to get that small space, Although in business it's not goodwill, because for you to pay goodwill, the business must be in existence and must be running, and you are paying for those customers, and that, that the business is what we call as a going concern. But Kenyans would coin it and call it goodwill, which is not, right? But because you need the stall in the front street, you will definitely pay for the price. In fact, as an economist and an entrepreneur, I would ask, I don't know how long they will really take to recoup that kind of money. And maybe you are selling SIM cards, you're selling phones, you are selling airtime, you have an M-Pesa. To recover that money, I think may take a long time. But you realize things changed drastically, whereby now we don't need to be on the front side of the street. Maybe your stall is even 10 floors above the building, right? And you're doing so well because basically you are now on social media. You're working on technology to market your products. You're working on delivery. You are not even just supplying Nairobi, and you don't expect people to be walking from down all the way to 10th floor. At times you're even supplying in Kisumu, Mombasa, everywhere. So I think with the advent of technology and being able to create awareness, and being able to reach to the customers. Because I think we have gone to the point where the technology is helping us, first of all, to communicate, and for the customers to be able to know what is it that is at the offering and what value. So I don't think then we may operate in the traditional way and expect to make business. But thinking broadly, yes, I think the way to go to our business is not just SMEs, is adopting new technological methods of business and digital marketing.
Absolutely. You also talked about, when you're talking about now these larger corporations, you said borrowing sometimes is not, saving is not possible for these people who want to go the larger option. You gave a case in point of the supply of macadamia, but what happens when that particular business fails and you've taken up this loan of 100 million? Biashara inguke. What happens?
Okay, I think in business is a risk. And I think maybe something we forgot to mention at the beginning, when you are saying about the need and whether you are the solution to the problem, you must be a risk taker. Because, and I think along the way we even said being employed is hard, being in business is hard. You have to think what is your hard. So what we are saying is that it is a risk, anything, even that small business that you start. Even that big business you start. And I think then the level of preparedness, I think the level of research, the level of information that you need when you're getting to this kind of businesses, then they matter. Because I think for you to wake up to, like, you want to start a business, you want to get into processing, for example, you need to understand that industry extremely very well, because now you are going to be understanding it at a bigger scope. You are producing for export. That means that you just don't need to understand the industry here, the taxation issues, the legal framework, and so forth. You also even to understand the dynamics of the global market. You'll be selling your macadamia to the US, you'll be selling them to Europe, you'll be selling them to China, right? What does all that information really tell you about that industry in the next 4 or 5 years? So as you put in your money, then I think the focus, the preparedness, and everything else is more at a higher scope, maybe compared to someone who is starting a small business, right? And therefore, your risks are high as well. And therefore, how you want to mitigate those risks are also equally high. And of course, even those people who are funding, maybe for example, they're asking for security, right? Then it means they need more security to secure their funding and so forth. So what we are seeing is that we also know that in business, they have the risk, they have the return. If this business happens to be successful, automatically this person makes more money as compared to an SME, someone who is on small scale. Consequently, when things don't work, you also have to incur huge losses compared to a person who is running a small business. So the level of risk and the level of return and the level of retirement, preparedness, matters a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there are things sometimes that they say that when you're doing something, this is how much or how far you can go with it, boundaries. So in business, would you also say that as much as you want someone to take risk, the higher the risk, the higher the return. Is there really a rate at which somebody should take this risk? Kuna boundary kweli, or just take the risk as much as you can?
So I think basing on the level of experience and the level of skills that you have, and also I think we even talked about passion, right? It will definitely guide you, maybe more or less, where to start. In most cases, when you are more new to business and even more new to an environment, it is always advisable to start small and then you scale up as the business grows, right? And that's scaling up in terms of many things, because when the business now starts growing bigger, initially when you talk about a small business, at times there is not even difference between the owner of the business and the business itself. You and the business, you own the same thing, right? You are the employee there, you are the accountant, you are the manager. At times you are even the watchman, you are the cleaner. You do everything. But of course, as time grows, even to business, I think it goes without saying, you need people now to come and help you. You need to delegate most of the duties. You need to focus on to the future markets for the business. So you scale up as you go up. So that means that you also need to increase your skills as an entrepreneur. You have to increase the skills of your employees, right? And you have to continue building capacity, even in terms of machinery, equipment, and so forth. So it is important that you scale as the business grows. The only big risk is where, at times, the business, for certain advantageous reasons, the business grows faster than the ability of the owner to cope with the growth of the business. Then that puts the business at a very, very high risk of collapse, because as it grows bigger, if it outgrows you, as we may say from an economic perspective, then it may get out of hand. It's just like when you are driving a car and you are speeding and you lose control of the vehicle. So it is very important that we consistently grow and scale up. As an entrepreneur, of course, at some point, you'll be able to see, is this the level I want to go? Can I bring more people? Can I even bring more managers now to help me in managing the business, so that I just become overall, more technical people? I think scaling up the business and growing with the business is more advisable rather than a scenario whereby things just maybe starting from the top, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. We are talking about business, how to start a business and how to succeed while doing it. Of course, we are taking a very short break at this point. We're coming back with this conversation with Raphael Mato. Stay with us.
is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's mind. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is...
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe. It's Biashara Tuesday. We're talking about how to start a business and how to succeed while you're doing it. We have Raphael Matu in studio. He's an economist, an entrepreneur, and of course, a business expert. We were talking about funding,
Yes.
for these business startups. And my question now is, what alternative options are there for these businesses that aren't able to access traditional bank loans? Access to capital is, of course, very much difficult for most entrepreneurs. So what are these alternative fundings that you would recommend for the startups?
I think, again, it depends on the level and the size of the business.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about very small businesses, I think, like I said, savings could be one of the ways that we can get to invest. Maybe borrowing from family members and friends, because the small businesses find it quite challenging to get funding, especially from the financial institutions.
Yes.
The reason, of course, is, financial institutions are also in business. And the small businesses are considered to be maybe high-risk areas. And that is why you realize, like, most of the policies by the government that wants to promote entrepreneurship among the youth, entrepreneurship among the women. Then we come up with programs like maybe the Youth Fund, the Women Fund, of course. We also have other funding agencies, international organizations that are trying to support maybe businesses within the grassroots. So those one maybe could be the possible options maybe for small entrepreneurs, that either you have your own personal savings, you can maybe borrow from a SACCO. Of course, when we encourage people to form SACCOs or to be in chamas is one of the way of dealing with small businesses. Because also through those chamas, people can be able to borrow. And why even now financial institutions like the chama model is because you transfer the risk. We have said small entrepreneurs are quite risky. So you transfer the risk from the bank to the chama members. It is the chama members now who are to whip the members who are not paying up, their debts. Because if you don't pay up, then it means as members of the group, you are at risk of not being able to borrow when we need money for investments and so forth. So therefore, personal savings, borrowing from SACCOs, working through chamas, going through government programs like the Youth Fund, Women Fund, or getting funded through other financial institutions. Maybe some of them are private, others are maybe facilitated through big organizations like the World Bank, USAID, and so forth, and then they channel down to promoting maybe entrepreneurs, especially women and youth. Though those are main sources of funding for small businesses. For big organizations and big funds, I say that times is difficult for them not to borrow unless maybe first of all you bring in investors, because when it's a big project and it's a big idea, at times we talk about pitching. You have to go to investors and tell them maybe this is the idea I have on the table, this is how the idea will work. And that is why we say even when you have major big forums, people with big innovations, with big ideas, the table. And there will be many investors who are seriously looking for ideas. That is why you find that when we have like business exhibitions in KICC everywhere, Serious entrepreneurs will come and sit and listen and notebooks and they're writing because they want to know, is there really a workable business idea here? And if it is workable, then maybe I'm willing to take a risk, maybe to come in as an investor. You will be leading because you have the idea, because you see, it is something you have in the mind, but have been able to listen as an investor, and I can see this is workable. Others, of course, you'll go to the banks, you'll present your ideas, maybe in terms of a business plan or a business proposal. They need to evaluate, is it workable? Is it really working? And again, we also have international funding agencies, which again also through various channels, they're able to fund this kind of entrepreneurs. Although for international funders, most of them will really want to work with already existing businesses that really need to upscale when you have already shown them that you're capable of making the investments, and when you're able now to show that the business has a future moving forward. And I think even as a financial consultant, I know I have done for several big organizations something we call as due diligence. You know, you have to look at the processes, you have to look at their finances, you have to look at their management, you have to look at the legal existence and all this, because for financials, all these are things that they'll be so much interested in before they can be able to provide capital for these organizations to scale up.
You know, Raphael, of course, you're talking about how to start a business, and maybe somebody's watching and anataka kwanza biashara, but he or she is hearing investors love already established the businesses. So is there really hope for people who are just starting, hope for them to succeed and scale up their businesses and also get to that level where these bigger investors are also interested in their businesses? Yeah,
it is workable. In fact, what people need to realize in statistics, and I think we discussed here some time back when I was in the studio, I think we were discussing family businesses. Statistically, people need to understand that over 80% of all businesses we have around are family businesses. So that means you are starting at a personal level, maybe as a family leader or as an individual, you know, and then you started, then maybe you could even have started when you even don't have a family, and family comes in and they join you and you work. So it is workable, but like we have said, it is also very important to be very clear. What is it that you want to offer in the industry? Find out whether you really have the right skills, as we said, that the passion to do it. But above all, also realize that starting a business comes with its own challenges. Are you really able to persevere those challenges, right? The biggest challenge I think we have is most people want to get to business today thinking like money will be coming tomorrow. And you see, when money does not come in, you already set to run away, right? Yeah, but remember, it is a matter of sacrifice. It is a matter, there are some people, maybe you have to leave employment for you now to be able to run your business. So that means there'll be some time when even the cash flow, you know, you're used to a constant cash flow, you know, umekuwa na pesa kwa mfuko. But at some point, when you get to business, you know, we always say that an entrepreneur does not have an end month. And every time is end month, meaning that you can make money anytime. And then you may also not have money. When everybody else is getting paid, you may not be getting any pay. In fact, at times when you are struggling as an entrepreneur, the most difficult time comes in by the end of the month, when you realize that you have salaries and people and bills to pay, right? So it is to realize that first you're doing it with a problem that you want to solve in mind, and you feel you have the ability and you have the capacity to solve that problem. And then you have to manage and look, what is it that you need? I think we said about all those resources, right? Take time to understand, I need to put up this, I need to put up this, I need to put up this. Not because someone did it, but because this is what I want to do, right? Take time also to get a lot of information about whatever is it that you want to do, because of course information is power, right? Get to understand those people who are in that line, why are they successful, right? Those who have started in that line and they have failed, maybe basically what is it that has made them to fail? And like I said earlier, think beyond the box. What is it that you feel you'll be able to make you be different from the other people who are already within the business? I think when you address all those things, then you should be able to succeed in terms of running your business. But also understanding that a business comes in with challenges. And one of the features of a good entrepreneur is to be able to persevere and also to be innovative, right? And also to be decisive. At times when things don't work, we just keep quiet and we wait for them to flow. They should not flow. you have to make a decision, decide this cannot go this way. Maybe I'm making mandazis, they are not moving. Maybe samosas will be able to do better. Though my idea was to start with mandazi, but maybe mandazis are not moving, I may have to work with samosa. I started at this location because maybe I realized that farmers around here, maybe they have many cows, a lot of milk is going to waste. Maybe I decided maybe I still want to start a milk cooling plant. But maybe the farmers are no longer keeping cows, right? So should I still continue with my cooling plant? Should I relocate it to a different position altogether, a different location, or should I do something that is totally different, right? So I think what will make entrepreneurs to survive is, like I said earlier, to be agile. We have to be able to be flexible and to be able to understand that business calls us to change with the changing times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's this also conversation about paying yourself as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know, how you have this, let's say, just as a beauty business, you know, you make sales, you save, you invest, but also still pay yourself. So how does one, because every day is payday, sometimes you don't get pay.
Yeah.
How do I manage now to pay myself and also just continue making profit for my biashara?
So I think what it means in terms of, let me say, from an economic perspective, right? We forget that for the success of the business, your effort and your contribution is very, very important. So you cannot manage to support your business when you're hungry, right? you cannot afford to support your business when you're out there, you have been kicked out by the landlord, and you are sleeping in the streets, and you are reporting to work. And what most people don't realize is that whatever you give as a service to the business is more or less equivalent to the same thing that you could have employed someone else, and you can also pay for that service, right? So we get to business and we work and we pay everybody else, and we forget that even ourselves, we also have bills and we have needs that needs to be met for us to be able to effectively operate and to be effectively be able to run the business. So therefore, it's also important to realize that as part of the expenses and everything that you're doing, you also have to consider that you're able to compensate. You may not be able to compensate yourself fully because at times it's difficult, but at least you're able to meet your needs as an entrepreneur so that you can be able to give the best to your business. Otherwise, like I've said, when you're hungry, when you're out in the cold, you've been kicked by the landlord, you are stressed, there is no power in the house, right? It will be very difficult for you to really manage the business. So therefore, for you to be able to be sober and to be focused, then it is also important that at least let the business help you meet some of your basic requirements as an entrepreneur. Yeah.
The business rule, does it also have this percentage of paying, saving, investing? You see, when we are saving, it has the 20, 30, 50 rule.
Okay.
So does a business also work around something like that?
No, not really, because there are certain, some things are said more easily said in theory rather than in practice. And I think when you're in it, it is the time now you make certain decisions as to how much money maybe probably do you need to set aside, maybe probably for business growth, right? In the starting point and also the stage at which the business is, there'll be some areas where you may not necessarily be able to put aside anything from the business. If anything, the business will be asking money from you. You may find yourself putting in more capital because, like, for example, when the business is just at the growth stage, it is just coming up, right? It needs a lot of time, it needs a lot of resources. At times it cannot be able to break even, as we normally say. So most of the resources that you need to run the business are coming from you as the entrepreneur. There'll be a point whereby the business will break even, and the break even means it can meet its own costs, but it may not be able to have any surplus, right? But now beyond that, then the business will be able to make the profits. Then it is at that time, again, depending on whether you're an SME, whether you're corporate, or whatever, you sit down and decide, then what do we do with this profit? How much should you retain? That is why at times for those people who have invested in companies, they sit and they wait, there'll be dividends maybe coming. But maybe we don't declare every profit we got as dividends. Maybe part of it will have to go to what we call as the reserves, which maybe can help us to expand the business in future. So I think some of these things will make the decisions when you are there, rather than try to put up a rule, which at times maybe this rule may not be workable, and maybe at times may make you feel frustrated. You know, when you set targets, it's good to have targets, but to realize that most reasonable decisions will be workable at that particular time.
When you're in it.
When you're in it. And that is why at times learning entrepreneurship in theory is very different as to doing practical kind of entrepreneurship. I know out there's a lot of people who study entrepreneurship, but unless you're in it, your perception and your thinking is totally very different. Yeah. Otherwise, if you have not been in business, you're just basically theoretical.
And you know, that's true, because I was a student of business once.
Yeah.
They taught us how to come up with this business plan.
Yeah.
So my question now is, how important is this business plan? Because you were taught about it just theoretically.
Yeah.
And what elements should, now this startup, there's just somebody starting this business of theirs, should key in this plan of theirs?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a business plan is critical when you are starting a business. In most cases, it may not be a very detailed document depending on the kind of business that you're doing, but you must have a framework of what is it that you really want to do.
Yeah.
But in most cases, when you ask for detailed kind of business plan, it is very important because, first of all, it will help you in financing when maybe you are looking for financing. Remember, a business plan is like your business idea now in a written form, in a very well articulated form. And that is, you are now trying to convince someone else, I need money because this is what I want to do. That person is sitting on that document to see, is what you are trying to say you want to do. Is it doable? Is it realistic? Again, is it only theory, right? As we have just said. And that is why when we are, some of the things, like, we need to be very, very clear about the business. How do you intend to organize your business? How does it look? Maybe in terms of structure, who is where and who is going to be who is going to be responsible for what, right? We need to be very clear in terms of operations, right? Like, maybe if it's a factory, we need to do this. We are going to have these departments. This is how all these departments are going to be interlinked, you know. To like, you understand the entire process of what you want to offer, whether it's a good or a service, from the beginning to the end, right? How are we going to deal with the market, you know? What are the possible risks that you foresee? Because you are not going to be operating in a plain, smooth ride, right? And how are you going to deal with those possible risks that you can see ahead, right? So all those things need to be articulated, again, not in theory, but in a way practically that is doable, so that you can convince the financiers. But the other advantage is that when you have a business plan, then it is also very important. It helps you through the implementation of the ideas that you already have, right? It also helps you not to lose some of the ideas. You know, we cannot trust everything in memory. So when the ideas are very fresh and you're able to put them down, then you're able to remember them moving along. So therefore, a business plan will help you in financing. It will help you to safeguard your very critical ideas as you think, yes, we can do this, right? And when you safeguard those ideas, you're able to, it helps you even to develop them further, because I thought I can do this. Oh, when I do this, it is still possible. I can scale up to this, right? Then when you also go to implementation, it is going to be a guide, a very clear guide towards the implementation process, right? You may not implement it 100%, but it's good to have like a timetable, you know, like a guide when you are now doing things in a practical way. We are not saying that business plans are always implemented 100%, not really. But again, they help you to at least put your ideas in a more workable framework, in a more realistic thing. Because if, for example, you need financing or you're pitching using your business plan, you are telling us you want to do this. How is it workable? You know, how realistic? Do you have this kind of technology, right? Do you have this kind of skill? Yes, you see, according to my organizational structure, I have said I'm going to employ an operations engineer or a mechanical engineer. You can see that it will be the role of this person. You know, that all these ideas interconnect, right? So it basically helps to bridge all those gaps, which at times you may not see them if you have not been able to put them in a relatively more organized manner.
Amazing, interesting, very, very well explained. Of course, as we wind up now, Raphael, you see, you were talking about businesses sometimes don't get to see their third birthdays. You know, I caught that.
Yes.
So what mistakes do you see these entrepreneurs make from the early stages? And what advice would you have for these businesses that are just starting up as we wind up?
One of the mistakes that may lead us to this scenario is when you get to business, like I said earlier, and you are not very sure where you want to be in that business. So that means that you have not really looked at the key fundamentals, like we said. Whatever you intend to offer, is it something that is needed in the market? right? Whatever you intend to offer, is it something that you are capable of offering? And we have realized that your capability is like you are providing a solution. So do you have the capacity to provide that solution, right? Through experience, through passion, as we said, through skills, right? Then thirdly, what is it that you need? Have you been able to articulate exactly what is it that you need, especially more so in terms of resources, right? You need to get into farming, right? You need land. Is it that land there? Maybe you want to even to do farming in large scale. What kind of mechanization do you need, right? What kind of capital do you need, right? Some people, again, when they're also trying to look for funding, I think they are so much eager to get money, and they also forget that this money comes with a lot of cost in it, right? So are some of the costs sustainable, right? At times we see people even getting money from a Shylock, right? And maybe Shylock will be charging you 50% or most even 100% of what you have borrowed in terms of interest. So therefore, how much will your business take so that you can be able to repay that money? So therefore, I think it is important also to consider the cost of, apart from just looking at your ability to solve this problem, as you look for financing, what is the cost of that finance, right? It is also important that to realize that businesses take time to peak, right? So the issue of being patient, the issue of being able to persevere, I think those are key issues, because some people come into business, you are hit in the first round and you're out, right? Yeah, and maybe probably you don't want to hear anything to do with business again, right? But maybe it is through those testing times, it is those ups and downs when you go through in business. I think those are in fact, those are the periods that really create entrepreneurs, right? Your ability to withstand, your ability to think and look for solutions as the problems come in, and even your ability to become more innovative. And remember, I even talked about agility, right? So how flexible are you to the changing scenarios within the industry, right? Yeah, because the industry dynamics will always change, economics will always change, technology will always change, right? Legal framework will change. Some things that you're doing today as business, they will become, tomorrow they'll be illegal. The government will pass a policy and it will be illegal to do such kind of a business. So does it mean you get out of business completely? How flexible will you be in terms of switching from what you're doing and maybe probably moving to a new platform or maybe to a new line of business? So therefore, I think when we think business, we need to come with very open mind. And we need to come with the mind that it is not just making money tomorrow, right? But the fact that things will change, that will not stop you from moving forward. Yeah. So I think those are very, very critical issues. I talk to young people a lot, and who have been in business, and again also the nature of the businesses, because remember, when we are talking about business, there are those who are dealing with goods, there are those ones who are dealing with services. Like, for example, me being a consultant, for example, right? So what do consultants do, right? I also run a school as well, right? A Royal Business School. What do we offer in this kind of a school? You know,
Absolutely.
those are things that we need to consider, but let's be open-minded as we get to business. It is not really a walk in the park, but I believe it's the best thing to do.
All right. Thank you so much, Raphael. This has been a very, very insightful conversation, of course, how to start a business and how to thrive while at it. That is Raphael Matu, an economist, financial consultant, and an entrepreneur. Thank you so much for watching. We're taking a very short break at this point. We are coming back with a conversation on the role of recycling in combating climate change. Stay with us.